Alright, so it's August and it's time for another book haul video. First off though, I'd like to talk a little bit about my bookshelves behind me. I did a video a while back. I'm doing this series, The Masterpieces of Science Fiction, and once I had finally acquired all the 140 books in the series, I wanted to get them on a bookshelf so I had like a visual representation of all the books in one place, all the books that I had needed to read, and then I was going to start moving them over here as I read them. But since then, I built this custom bookshelf specifically for mass market paperbacks, and I really like the way it turned out. I really like the way the books look on there, but I've got all of my books kind of split up now. I've got some here, I've got some over there, I've got series that are split up, and that's kind of frustrating to me. So what I think I'm going to do is move everything over to my new shelves, all my mass market paperbacks, leave these shelves for hardbacks and trade paperbacks, and just kind of reorganize everything. And then to keep track of my series, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing with keeping track on a spreadsheet. So that's that. This is probably the last video. You'll see all these books arranged on here. And with that being out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the book haul. So I've got about 50 books to go over in this video. The first grouping is from Book Outlet, and these are some trade paperbacks, and then the rest of the books that I'll be going through are all mass market paperbacks, most of them being vintage science fiction. So the first book I got was The Medusa Chronicles by Stephen Baxter and Alistair Reynolds. I have yet to read anything from either one of these authors. It kind of looks like a good standalone, maybe a good place to start. If anyone's read that, just let me know. And then I got Aurora by Kim Stanley Robinson. I recently finished the Mars trilogy and had a really good time with that. It was really long, 2,000 pages. So probably when I dive into Kim Stanley Robinson's work in the future, I'll start with that book. It's a little shorter, and I think it's probably one of his most well-known standalones. Next, I got Worlds of Exile and Illusion by Ursula K. Le Guin. And this is a compilation of 3 of the first novels in her Hainish cycle: Rokanan's World, Planet of Exile, and City of Illusions. And this is a trade paperback, and I'm going to use this as a reading copy. I've seen the vintage artwork cover of those books, so if I ever get a chance to collect those, I'd like to get those in my collection. But that's where I'll start when I enter the Hainish cycle of Ursula's. Then I got The Fifth Head of Cerberus from Gene Wolfe. This was one that I've not really heard much about. Most people talk about The New Sun and The Long Sun, but at some point this is a shorter work, just over 200 pages. It'd be a good one to knock out in between some other big books. Then I got Robert Charles Wilson's Spin. I was kind of frustrated every time I went to the library to get this book. It was checked out. I think for obvious reasons. I've heard really good things about this book. I know it's part of a trilogy, and people say it really drops off after the first book, but definitely want to give that at least the first book a shot. And then I got The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu. And I've heard a lot about this. I know this is not the favorite book in the trilogy, but I'm kind of excited. I've heard a lot of things and I don't want any spoilers, so at some point I'm going to try to find the last 2 books, and I think sooner than later I'll try to read through this trilogy so that I don't get it spoiled, or I'll know what people are talking about with all the hype around that series. And then the last one I got is The Soldier by Neil Asher. And this is book 1 of The Rise of Jane. And so I know he's written a big universe of books, and this might be a good place to start when I get to that someday. Now we're into the paperbacks. So I got a group of books from Robert Hogan. These are not in the best shape, but they'll probably end up being reading copies. I got The Gentle Giants of Ganymede. This is part of one of his series. I've got The Two Faces of Tomorrow. That's got a neat cover. This one's in pretty good shape. Those first two, all of these are actually Del Rey. Then I got Entoverse. And I think that's book 4 in the Inherit the Stars trilogy or series. And Giant Star. So I had a lot of these in book club editions, but I'm trying to kind of replace them with paperbacks. I don't know if I'll keep the book club editions going forward, but I'll have to make that decision in the future if I start running out of bookshelf space. Okay, next I got a more vintage copy of a book that I've read recently, Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. It's not in the best shape, but I think it's a lot better than this modern cover that has some sort of TV tie-in. So I will probably replace that and end up donating the old version. Then I got a couple from James Tiptree Jr., which is a pseudonym for, I forget her name, but I've got The Warm Worlds and Otherwise. And I've also got 10,000 Light Years from Home, and I think this is her kind of first and most popular compilation of stories, and it's pretty thick. So excited to check her out. I've never read anything from her. Then I've got The Lazarus Effect by Frank Herbert and Bill Ransom. And this is a Berkeley edition. I've got a lot of the Berkeley edition Frank Herbert books, so that'll look nice on the shelf. Then I've got one I haven't heard much of. This is one of my favorite authors, Alfred Bester, The Dark Side of the Earth, and this is a pan science fiction. And one other one from Alfred Bester, and I really love this cover. This is Golem 100, kind of one of his later entries, and one that I don't think is very highly rated or thought well of, but I like the cover and I like the author, so went ahead and got that. And then I got an older book from Kim Stanley Robinson, The Gold Coast. I think this was one of his first series he did, and I really like his writing. I will probably space out his writing a little bit more. Reading the Mars trilogy all at once felt like a little bit of homework, but in the end, very worthwhile. Then I got Paul Anderson, Conflict. And this is a Tor edition. Bruce Sterling is another author that I haven't read anything from. One of the books of his is on the list, but this one's called Involution Ocean. And this is an Ace copy. We've got some basic artwork on that one. Now, another one of my favorite authors, Clifford Simic, A Choice of Gods. I really like this era of the Del Rey versions of his books. They've kind of got this, most all of them have this pastel tone and nice artwork. So eventually I'd like to collect all those. Now this is a book I've already read on the channel. It's Man Plus by Frederick Pohl. This was the book club edition I had. I really like this book. It surprised me. And I found this vintage paperback copy with just an awesome cover. It is in immaculate shape. And I probably will end up replacing my book club with that one. Andrea Norton, Sea Siege. This is a faucet crest. Another one, I haven't read much of her or him, actually. I don't even know if that's Andre or Andrea. Who knows? Someone, well, it's a woman. She was born Alice Mary Norton. So, yeah, I haven't read anything from her. I see her books all over the place. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll find out. The Best of Robert Silverberg. This is from Pocket Science Fiction. Another one that was just in immaculate shape. Couldn't pass it up. Another compilation, Crystallis 8. And this is edited by Roy Thorgensen. And this is a Zebra science fiction edition. And then now I think I have 4 different versions of this book, but this is by far my favorite cover. I'll probably kick some of the other copies to the curb, donate them, give them away, something like that. But this is Stranger in a Strange Land, Robert A. Heinlein. This is the only book that I've read of Heinlein that I've actually sort of enjoyed. But I read a lot of his books when I was younger, and I think hopefully when I reread some of these, I'll appreciate them a little bit more. Then I got the 7 Deadly Sins of Science Fiction. This is a faucet and crest, edited by Isaac Asimov. Bunch of good authors listed in this one, and it's in really good shape. Another one I upgraded a copy of, The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is my favorite cover. This is the Ace Science Fiction. And when I was talking about those first 3 Hainish, if you've seen the matching artwork and cover of those books, it'll fit perfectly with this one. So I'm on the lookout for those. Then I got The World of Patavs, whatever it is, Larry Niven. I don't know how to pronounce that, but these are another one. There's a lot of different versions of his books. These are the Del Reys. They all kind of have this same format, and I would love to collect the whole known universe of Larry Niven plus more, with all these matching covers all in good shape. So I've got a little bit of a start, but I know there's a lot of books in that series. So here's another Larry Niven, Limits. I believe this is a collection of short stories, and on the back it says it's fantasy and science fiction. So Del Rey, really good condition. And then the Ringworld Throne. The Ringworld books, I believe there's 4. I think I have 3 of them now. This is a Del Rey, but they changed some of the formatting and artwork. But there's not much we can do about that now. Creatures of Light and Darkness by Roger Zelazny. I always try to reverse the Z and the N, and so I have to make a concerted effort to pronounce his last name right. This is an Avon. All right, last stack here. We got Time Out of Joint by Philip K. Dick. And our man Phil is right on the cover of this one. This is a Carroll and Graf edition, which I haven't heard much about these. I don't know if these are foreign. I'll have to look into this. But it's in good shape, and that's a book of his I haven't read. And then I've got another one from the same publisher, Carroll and Graf. This is High Rise by J.G. Ballard. And I've heard this is a pretty grim book. It's very short, so I'm excited to kick this out at some point. We got Cat Fantastic. This is a collection of short stories edited by Andrea Norton and Martin Greensburg. And You gotta love cats on the cover. Bunch of authors. Yeah, a bunch of different authors in this one. We got The Space Jacks by Robert Wells. Never heard of this author. This is an ace. I like the cover though, and it was a vintage copy in good condition, so went ahead and picked that up. Collision Course by Robert Silverberg. This is an ace science fiction copy. We got The Many-Colored Land by Julian May. I had purchased a big lot of books on eBay, and there was some that I had never heard of, and I looked this one up, and it sounds very interesting, maybe a little on the fantasy side, and it's part of a series, but it looks pretty good, and this is a Del Rey version. Then we got Damon Knight, CV, and this is part of a series, I believe, and this is a Tor edition. Okay, last pile here. We got OX by Piers Anthony. Once again, part of a series. I've bought some of these lots on eBay and then get them and look them up and realize that they're part of a big series, and then I start looking up all the other books even before I read book one. This is an Avon edition in really great shape. C.L. Grant, The Shadow of Alpha, and I believe this is Charles L. Grant. He's written a lot of horror. I know I've read some of his horror books. I believe this is the same person. Maybe he changed it to CL when he was writing science fiction. But this is an ace version of that book. Then we got another author I've never really heard of. This is Empire of Two Worlds by Barrington J. Bailey. I believe I looked this up, and I can't remember if this one had pretty good reviews or if I just wanted to kind of hang on to it because of that artwork. And it'll look nice with all my other vintage sci-fi. Now here's an interesting one. I looked this up. I really wanted it because of the cover and what it says it is, and the author, but then I looked it up. It doesn't have the best reviews, but this is Cyclone by Greg Bear, and they call it an occult science fiction thriller. And when I read Blood Music, it had that thriller, fast-paced vibe that I really enjoyed. And so I figured this could be a good book to throw in between some big, dense science fiction or something like that. Okay, then I got The Big Jump by Lee Brackett. Nice, vintage ace science fiction edition that's in very good condition. One more by Lee Brackett. This is The Long Tomorrow. And I believe this is kind of a post-apocalyptic. By the cover, there looks like there's some sort of Amish vibe. I think it's one of her highly rated books. This is a Ballantine edition. And excited to get to that at some point. Okay, the last two. And these are both part of a series. We've got The Humanoids by Jack Williamson. I already had a copy of this, but this edition includes a short story that you can read before The Humanoids, and it's called With Folded Hands. There's also something called Me and My Humanoids, but I think that was at the end of the book, and it's just like 2 pages or just a few pages of, I think, Jack Williams just talking about writing the series or something like that. So this is an Avon edition in really good shape. And then I also have the sequel called The Humanoid Touch. And this is a Bantam edition. and it's also in really good condition. So that's it. Those are my books that I got this month, or up to this month. A last look at the bookshelves here before I do some reorganization. But I think my new bookshelves are going to look a lot better with all the books on there. All my series will be represented, and I'll be able to see a little bit better where I've got holes, where I'm trying to match publishers, all that kind of stuff. So it's a few more books. I'm trying to fill up my shelves. Look for another book haul next month. And until then, thanks for watching.